Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for joining us for our Shadowplay Zoom reading. I appreciate you all for one, just being a part of this magazine in general. We have our second issue just out, and we're extremely proud of it. Both issues. We appreciate all our contributors, our staff, and the University of Arkansas Monticello for sponsoring this magazine and helping us make this come to life. So our first reader is going to be Julie. I know she mentioned she had to get somewhere in about 30 minutes, so I'm going to make sure she goes first so we get to hear her. So Julie Kane is professor emerita at Northwestern State University of Louisiana, currently teaching in the MFA program at Western Colorado University. Forthcoming in spring 2025 from LSU Press will be Naked Ladies, New and Selected Poems. Julie's poem Duplex Robot was published in Shadowplay issue 2. Welcome, Julie.
Thank you, Chase. And I'm going to read my duplex, which most of you probably know is a form recently invented by Jericho Brown. It's kind of a mashup of the sonnet, the blues, and the guzzle. A lot of repetition in it. This is Duplex Robot. I will not write a pandemic poem. Robots are terrible at writing poems. Robots are very bad at writing poems, though they're getting better and better at chess. I haven't played chess since adolescence, that era of generating angst-ridden poems, stuffing my angsty poems in a hinged metal box decorated with cherry blossoms, storks, and lanterns. Cherry blossoms, storks, and Japanese lanterns, early sign of robothood, affinity for Japan. Later sign of robothood, a stab of indecision when yet another website asks, "Are you a robot?" I may well be a robot after a year inside with minimal human contact, writing formulaic poems. Thanks.
Thank you, Julie. That was really nice. I love that. So up next, we have Mark McDonnell. So Mark McDonnell lives in Staffordshire, England with his wife, teenage twins, and 2 cats. He teaches English in a secondary school, and his poems have appeared in various journals, including The Dark Horse, Stand Magazine, Think, Antiphon, and Measure. And he has been shortlisted for the Times Literary Supplement's Mick Imla Poetry Prize. Mark actually had 3 poems published in Shadowplay issue 1, Bigger on the Inside, Winter Breathes, and Garden Sonnet. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you, Chase. Lovely to be here. Right, I'm going to read 2 of the poems that were in issue 1 then. They're both nice and short. So I'll start with Bigger on the Inside. Bigger on the inside. Life in hollows, holes, and burrows, hollowed out and helped at first by friends in ferns on half-term fallow afternoons. A Tizer bottle, library books in banded light and clear of nettles. Help me then, O TV screen, old movie, oh, and bottle after, blind and curtains drawn, and fallow afternoons again. It helped, I have to say. I have to say it helped, because the frost-lit path of never was I cannot follow. Ghosting still round small talk huddles, leave me on the outside. Here I'll hollow out, and there I'll hallow. Okay, and the next one is, it's been really, really hot today in merry old England, and this is a winter poem. But there you go. This is called Winter Breathes. Winter breathes, and though it doesn't snow, we feel that catching breath, peer closer now and keener into granular light. Ready for the snow, we'll float through air-thin days like a midnight leaf. Coats, hats, a relief to be a darkened thing in smudged and smoking dark. Inside blurs without, a house strewn with twigs and sodden grass from boots. Glove prints melt on walls, while echoing like halls, the fields are palatial white. We used to think the smallest birds would freeze and fall, indent their glittered graves. We'd watch the shifting powder closely for beak or wing. Rum-stoked soon we'll sing, heart-clutched. Muffled throats will swell for childhood. We wait for our roaring past to broach the liquored dam, for dumbly festive glow to soothe with cheapest tears. Give us that first day when the world is white. Forgive us our fickle ways when February's wagons spill their gritty load. And still it hasn't snowed. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Beautiful.
Thank you, Mark. All right. Up next, we have Kenneth Pobo. So Kenneth Pobo, he, him, is the author of 21 chapbooks and 9 full-length collections. Recent books include Bend of Quiet by Blue Light Press, Lop Lop in a Red City by Circling Rivers, Lilac and Sawdust by Meadowlark Press, and Gold Bracelet in a Cave, Aunt Stoxia by Ethel Press. His work has appeared in North Dakota Quarterly, Asheville Literary Review, Nimrod, Mudfish, Hawaii Review, and elsewhere. Kenneth had 2 poems published in Shadowplay Issue 2, 30 Years and Fits. Welcome, Kenneth.
Thank you, Chase. It's really fun to be here. Zoom is always a strange experience for me in some ways, but it's a good way to get people together around poems. I'll read the 2 poems that are in Shadowplay 2 here. They're both forms. First one, this is a happy poem for me about getting married to my husband. 30 years. On a cold, sunny day, we got married. The Unitarian Church held much light. The minister quite gracious and polite, asking us no questions about our creed. Some churches refused us despite our need. We celebrated with our friends that night. On a cold, sunny day, each touch was warm. We turned away fears so that we felt freed. After 25 years, we felt no fright. The moon popped in for sheet cake, wearing white. Love rockets out from the tiniest seed. On a cold, sunny day, no threat of storm. And the other poem in the Shadowplay is called Fits. Today, the world comes at me in round shapes. I'm rectangular. I don't fit. The news isn't good. In fact, it's awful. The hateful on TV give me a fit. It's spring. Flowers break every rule to dance. I look silly dancing. My clothes don't fit. The sky wants to be president or king. It wants to lead us, fit or unfit. The weather folks say that rain is coming. A raindrop got lost. It just doesn't fit. Hello, I'm Ken, a queer poet. I write, get lost, or found. I fit, can't fit. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Love the guzzle there.
Yeah.
Okay, up next we have Jeffrey Bryant. So Jeffrey is a pushcart-nominated queer poet and writer who lives in Los Angeles. His work has appeared in the Los Angeles Weekly, Los Angeles Times, Poetic Diversity, The New Verse News, PoetrySuperhighway.com, Synchronicity Magazine, and Quill and Echo. His work has also appeared in the anthologies The Coiled Serpent from Tia Chucha Press, the 2020 Altadena Literary Review from Shabda Press, and Sparring with Beatnik Ghosts from Mystic Boxing Commission Press. Jeffrey's story, Everything from Here, was published in Shadowplay issue 1. Welcome, Jeffrey.
Thank you very much. Wonderful poems, wonderful to be in this group today. Thank you for the invite. I have not, this is so far actually the only flash fiction piece that I've had published. I usually write a lot of poetry, so I was really excited when you accepted this for publication. And I'm dedicating this to Zoe Christopher, who's also in issue 1. It turns out she's right next to me in issue 1, and we ended up meeting a few months later through a completely different means. And so I became very good friends. So it's called Everything from Here. I can see everything from here, Marla said, everything I need to see. Benjamin agreed. Their future was certainly bright, with some accomplishments behind them, their best years yet to come, and their lives filled with just enough material delights. And so today, a chance to rise up slowly over the beautiful rolling hills of Sonoma wine country in a hot air balloon. The occasional hiss of propane making him antsy. Not really the best person in a small basket a few hundred feet in the air, but this was for her. The wind had its way with them, but Phil, their pilot, showed skill in opening and closing the blast valves as needed to maintain a constant altitude. Their flight was at sunrise as Marla wished, a sunrise being a beginning. It was also best to fly during early morning hours or during the sunset due to wind patterns, according to Phil, but a sunset flight did not appeal to her. Sunsets were about endings, and she was determined to have her symbolism. The Russian river that split the valley between two sets of vineyards pointed the way for most of the flight, with the sun teasing them just so with each small rise and fall, and then rise again across the soft air. Benjamin looked at Marla's face and saw a bliss he thought he'd never seen before this moment. He tried to hold her once, moving towards her in these cramped quarters, but her response was icy. She finally turned to see his face, ignoring for a moment any concern that they were not alone. She held her gaze deep inside his eyes for several minutes, darting glances from one to the other, each watering slowly from both the wind and the moment. He said uncomfortably that she was missing everything around them by looking only at him, and he was paying for this glorious moment, and she should drink it all in. It was an opportunity to look away from her gaze, a gaze seeking something from him, an answer or a prayer or a certain strength that disposable income spent on a hot air balloon cannot buy. He laughed. Then he looked back at her. Marla made her way to the opposite side of the basket. Benjamin looked at her, looking out at the world in motion below, facing away from him, her hair in the wind. The pilot turned to chat with Benjamin while opening the flame to gain altitude one final time before they would land. The men made small talk of flying and the wine this year and the freshness of the air and how this act of letting the wind take you on a journey really confirmed being alive. Benjamin turned to ask Marla if she agreed that this journey on the wind confirmed being alive. But Marla was gone. Benjamin and the pilot leaned over the basket, tipping it perilously, looking down in horror. Her arms and legs were outstretched. She quietly fell straight down towards rows of Cabernet mere weeks away from harvest. She stretched her arms and legs out as if the wind that held their balloon aloft would sweep her up too and carry her away. She flipped around while falling, and Benjamin saw a smile across her face and her eyes wide with mad ecstasy, as if the whole moment were a final chance to feel everything in her body before she made the most dramatic exit she could possibly have planned. A car that followed them along the highway rushed into the vineyard, plowing through rows of vines furiously to reach the place where her body disappeared into the bountiful green. The pilot maneuvered a makeshift landing spot and lowered the flame carefully. He looked over to where the car had stopped as the basket set itself upon the earth once more. An ambulance was soon on its way. The pilot held Benjamin, asking if he needed help to disembark. Benjamin's eyes caught sight of a small envelope wedged into the stitching of the basket that somehow survived the rapid descent. It bore his name in her script. He held it and gripped it. He would die 3 years later without ever having opened it. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jeffrey.
Thank you.
So up next, we have Wendy Sloan. So Wendy Sloan's poems and translations have appeared widely in many journals and anthologies. She was a finalist in the Howard Nemerov Sonnet Award competition, and several of her poems were nominated for a Pushcart Prize. Sloan's collection is Sunday Mornings at the Cafe Mediterranean by Kelsey Books in 2016. Amicitia, Sloan's collaborative work with artist Holly Brigham, was launched in March at the Rosenbach Museum and Library in Philadelphia. Her poem Jonathan, Lost But to Song appeared in Shadowplay issue 1. Welcome, Wendy.
Thank you. Jonathan, lost but to song. Can I reach you anymore? You rarely say a word, but let me strike your favorite score, and suddenly you'll be heard singing with a voice so strong, so sure, so loud, so clear, as though your former self, long gone, were truly wholly here. And will you sing when winter's furs rattle the window pane? Still sing when February stirs the maple sap again? If you were to endure the while to meet another spring, I will be near to catch your smile and wait to hear you sing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. That was excellent.
Chase.
All right. So up next, we have Nicholas Claro. So Nicholas Claro holds an MFA in creative writing from Wichita State University, where he was the 2023-2024 Fiction Fellow. His work has appeared in Cleaver Magazine, Pithead Chapel, Reckon Review, Identity Theory, JMWW, X-Ray Lit Mag, Ride or Die Magazine, and others. His stories Distribution and The Current were recently nominated for the Pushcart Prize. He lives and writes in Wichita, Kansas. Nicholas had a story titled Dust, published in Shadowplay issue 1. Welcome, Nicholas.
Hey, thanks, Chase. Thanks for having me. Thanks for publishing that story, by the way, too. That was a huge, awesome honor. So I'm just going to read a small micro piece called Trajectories. Like everyone else, when I see the plane, I get up from the table to get a better look. I'm not exactly sure at what speed planes travel, but I know a plane must travel faster when it's diving. Nothing is on fire, not the engines, not the wings, not the cabin, not the cockpit. There is no trail of smoke or debris. Nothing looks out of the ordinary, except, of course, that it's traveling down. Nearby, a few servers cluster together and begin speculating. I bet it's terrorists, one whispers. My money's on human error, another says. Or mechanical, says another. Aren't those basically the same thing, the first one says. Now the servers and most everyone else have their phones out, held up, recording or live streaming. Everyone except me and a nearby woman who has an infant pressed against her chest. She holds the baby's head in place so they have no choice but to face the opposite direction of the falling plane. And then it happens. A split second after the plane disappears, there's a brief flash and then a pillar of curling black smoke, spewing fire climbs high into the air. When the sound of the explosion reaches me, it's no louder than a refrigerator door sucking closed. Holy shit, one of the servers says. This isn't happening, the woman says quietly. I hardly hear her. She starts bouncing the baby, rapidly patting the child's back. She looks away, looking at me. That didn't just happen. I had a brother once, I say. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicholas. All right. So up next, we have Peter Mladnick. So Pete Mladnick holds an MFA from the University of Arkansas Fayetteville. His books Knives on a Table and Voices from the Past were published by Better Than Starbucks Publications. His book The Homesick Mortician came out this year from Blazevox Books. An animal rights advocate, he currently lives in Hobbs, New Mexico. So Pete's poem Psalm of Intimacy appeared in Shadowplay issue 2. Welcome, Pete.
Thank you, Chase, and good to see everybody here. And I'll go ahead. I'll read the poem from Shadowplay, and then I've got a short poem after that. A Psalm of Intimacy. Me and disappointment are close. Disappointment knows my favorite songs, the painters I like, paths, doors I step in and out of, thorns I remember, and fire pit flames. Disappointment knows codes and passwords written so I won't forget. If disappointment left, I'd be less than who I am, with a bit more emptiness. To say I'm disappointed, not in others or in things, but with myself, is a blessing, simply because I'm able to. As if my hands were strewn with beads and I was kneeling on a cushioned pad I'd pulled down from my knees in a pew in a church, or lifting a lid on a milk box and taking the full bottles through a door, setting them in a fridge to keep them cold. Me and disappointment trade baseball cards of pitchers, my Roy face for his Warren Spahn. In my finished cellar of knotty pine walls, disappointment asks, who's more beautiful, Marilyn Monroe or your mother? Disappointments from what we called the old country, we being street sweepers and ones who made levers so ledges and pews went up and down. And this is fairly recent, a one-word title, Squeak. I'm an animal rights advocate, so this kind of fits in with this, I hope, and a light touch to it, I hope. They all get together and howl over something out the window. He squeaks. It drives me nuts, that little terrier. Even if one isn't by the window but somewhere else, he or she hears the howling and joins in this poem about inside dogs. Is your dog an inside dog or an outside dog? Oh, you don't have a dog or a cat, only love. All that love inside for someone or something. Thank you.
Thank you, Pete.
You're welcome.
So up next, we have John Riley. So John Riley is a teacher and editor. 10,000 Words, a collection containing 100 of his 100-word prose poems, was published in 2023 by Exot Books. He has also published poetry and fiction in the Comstock Review, Smoke Long Quarterly, Literary Matters, and other journals and anthologies online and in print. He has been nominated for the Best of the Net. He has also published over 40 nonfiction books for young readers. John appeared in Shadowplay issue 2 with his poem No Sister, No Brother. Welcome, John.
Welcome. Thank you for inviting me. I'd like to read the poem that was in Shadowplay 2, and then I have another poem I'd like to read behind it. I think I could do it in time. All right, this is the poem that was in Shadowplay. It's called No Sister, No Brother, and it has an epigraph from Poe, 10,000 miles of farewell on this boat. My sister, promiscuous in talk, weary of thought, still lives on a burned over hill where nothing she knows is gold, where no trees bear a future, The dirt in her mouth is fruitless. The tall red grass of escape forgot long ago how to glow. Her heart shut, she never sailed from the land she thought she knew, on the ship gray in fog and flows, her strong hand grasping a tiller. The ice flows she never avoided were not white or shy of Sidon, each one a persistent emerald or an inviting, complacent blue. No anger is left by her absence or pale memories of who I knew. She will never tarnish what I see when I turn my eyes to a final sea. And the second poem, real quickly, I had this idea that I like to write the classic poems, and I thought about what if I write a classic poem about a painting that I paint in the poem while I'm writing the classic poem. So this is what I attempted here. I've done a few more in that thing. It's called Moving Life with Questions. She is ironing a blue dress in the white washroom. The heat from the iron warms her hand. The room is filling with the red slant of a fallen sun. Our kitchen is through the open door. Steam rises from a boiling pot. Her hair is cut at a slant. Her bangs angle down her forehead. A darker red light comes through the window. Her free arm is now covered with red. She sets the iron on its end. She smiles and takes a slow whirl. Her hair is too short to fly up. She turns back to the ironing board. She picks up the dress with both hands. She presses it to her breast. Now we must make a decision. Does she move into the kitchen to cook dinner? Is the dress her finest? Is she planning to wear it tonight? Is she a young virgin still confused? Is a young husband upstairs? Is he about to disappoint her? Is she a French girl who sings La Vie en Rosa? Is she leaning toward the window? Is she still here? Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Sean.
Thank
you. Okay, so up next we have Mitzi Dorton. So Mitzi Dorton is author of Chief Corn Tassel by Finishing Line Press, a finalist for the Literary Global Book Awards in Biography and History. Her writing is in Poetry South, Rattle, The Orchard's Poetry Journal, Southern Literary Review, Oxford Magazine, Southeast Missouri State University Press, and many others. She's a reader and reviewer for Newnham Literary Journal, and Mitzi's poem Equinox appeared in issue 2 of Shadowplay. Welcome, Mitzi.
Thank you. Equinox. Asters in the fields and goldenrod, sweet pea half dying, you enter the world, third baby, hand-me-down gown, in need of an extra quilt, of sister's clothes scraps, and more for the night chill. Squash coming from the garden, the last meal I try to feed you in baby food consistency. The rest of the tomatoes, green, gold, orange, scarlet, dot the windowsill. Trees beyond the glass barely hinting at the warm colors to come. Sun offering enough for your mother to bring you to the porch stoop. Webs from spiders forming around the corners of the understep, and sheet webs in little circles across the grass. I'm cold, you say, and I spread the cover over you, billowing it, the way you did for me when I was young. At night, mysterious lights, full moon, a ball for future visual play, light beacon reaching from the heavens as you cradle by the window. Coals fiery, readjusting and settling in the wood stove. Your vision almost a flicker, eyesight mostly absent now. I tell you I am here. That tree shedding fruit just past the bridge away from the tracks. Your siblings' tiny arms could barely shake the branches. Green with wine stripes, table trophies, spiraled peelings, scents of fried apples sizzling, and apple butter on lacy cut bread. Skilled lattice work, a masterpiece pie, Applesauce for you, little intruder. They laugh as you make the sour face, but you enjoy it all the same. I bring applesauce for the ancient one. Bedbound, you might carry memories of childhood kitchens, smells of cinnamon, clove, and hovering near wood stoves for warmth. Shedding wraps as the afternoon heats up in the arms of your mother, orange braid around her forehead, freckled smile, amusing you, the auburn haired baby. Hair, gossamer wisps now, holding my hand, the silver haired daughter of your own. You just think you'll live forever, you say, half apologetic. Then you do leave, just before the equinox, with 98 autumns come and gone. The voice I recognize from my beginning, lost in the passing veil, the turn of the seasons.
Excellent. Thank you, Mitzi.
Thank you.
Okay, up next, I have Deanne Jordan. So Deanne Jordan, she earned her BA from San Francisco State University and MA from California State University, Northridge, in English and creative writing. She has published 2 books of poetry, Whispers from the Seaweed in 1997, Deadly Birds of the Soul from Cherry Grove Collections in 2007, and is currently working on a third, The Hands of Ghosts, as well as a novel. Her work has been published in literary journals, including the Northridge Review and California Quarterly. Deanne has had poetry and fiction appear in both Shadowplay Issue 1 and 2, poems Scion and Winter Solstice, and stories September 14th, 2001, and Willing Lightning, respectively. Welcome, Deanne.
Hi, thank you so much. Apologies to those of you who may have heard this story before. I just wanted to read Willing Lightning real quick. Most of you haven't heard it, so hopefully it's fresh to most of you. So just a little preface. I used to live when I was very young in the outskirts of Phoenix. And when I was about 3 or 4 years old, we moved to San Diego. So that's where I grew up. I currently live in Los Angeles, but this is a memory from my time briefly in the 5th grade when we lived in Phoenix, the Phoenix area for one summer. We kind of moved around a lot. So this is Willing Lightning. It was hot and my body longed for water. Wearing red tank top and shorts, I grabbed a towel and slipped on my flip-flops, trying not to trip down the rough stone stairs of our apartment complex far outside the city limits of Phoenix. I wanted to escape the confines of our small apartment and the arguing of my parents all summer. The pool was an oasis just in front of our building, and my mother could watch me from the balcony across the parking lot, but she never did. The heavy gate slammed shut behind me. I was relieved to see only one other person there, an older man, maybe in his 50s, lounging on one of the long plastic chairs that always left lines on the backs of my thighs. He dragged on a cigarette with with his face to the sky, his eyes hidden behind large, round sunglasses. He seemed not to notice me, though he must have heard the gate. I decided to ignore him and slipped into the kidney-shaped pool at the other end of the concrete slab. The water was cool, but never cold, absorbing heat from the sun. It felt at times less refreshing and more like a genetic memory of humanoid ancestors emerging from swamplands. I thought a lot about water, obsessed by the dry auroras we'd see on expanses of the desert while on road trips. What made them? How long ago? A memory of water carved into red clay, like lines seen in the first pictures of Mars. I was barely in the 5th grade and I read everything I could, but not being in school, I had little access to books. Instead, I explored the areas around our apartment complex, large saguaros stretching arms to the sun, barrel cacti daring me to touch them, the threat of piercing real. But the pool was my home. As hot as the ground and rocks might get during the day, they'd slowly release their heat so that even at 3 a.m, it might still be 80 degrees outside. I treaded the water for a minute, trying to cool off, then dunked under, baptizing myself. Storm's coming, the man said to no one in particular. I'd just come up for air after a deep dive. I chose to ignore him and did a somersault. I came up again and he held and held the curved curb of the pool and looked at our empty apartment balcony across the driveway, feeling my toes getting pruny already as they gripped the rough surface of the wall far below. Storm's coming, the man repeated, putting out his cigarette in a moon-shaped ashtray on the table next to him. He sat up and tilted his chin to the horizon, and sure enough, there were dark clouds bunching up for miles. See those clouds, how dark they are? Monsoon weather. It's hot now, but in a few minutes, the wind will kick up and blow that monster over here. Might start as dry rain, but that lightning's nothing to mess with. Give it 10 minutes and you better get home. Okay, was all I could say. I bobbed in the water a bit more as he grabbed his pack of cigarettes and lighter, stuffing them into his long shorts, green palm tree leaves on his Hawaiian shirt fluttering as he walked. Once the gate slammed, I felt at peace, finally alone. I kept swimming, pretending to be a dolphin, diving deep and gliding as long as I could over the pool floor. I'd come up and backflip back again and again, pushing off the walls with my toes. Then the wind kicked up some leaves. I looked around and the world seemed empty. A tumbleweed bounced across the parking lot outside the gate. The man was right. The clouds arrived faster than expected. They seemed suddenly overhead, black, gray, and blue, reaching countless miles into the sky like floating mountains, blocking all light. But I didn't move. I stopped swimming and just laid back, floating on the surface, my chest expanding with the air, arms stretched out, watching the sky. Thunder, so loud it shook the windows of our apartments. Again and again, booms I could feel in the water in my chest. I'd never felt more alive. Boom, boom. My heart was one with the clouds, clashing above like ocean waves, the water in my body, the pool, the great heavy drops of rain, the clouds, all one. And then I saw it, flashes of illumination deep inside them. Lightning. I gasped, then yelled, yes, yes, come on. A branch of light pointed its finger down to touch the crown of a palm tree across the parking lot and set it on fire. I couldn't breathe. Watching singed and burning fronds fall to the asphalt, I stood upright, splashing in the water, willing the lightning down to me, to my primordial pool, a young sorcerer discovering her power. The man was behind me in the water. I hadn't seen him come back, hadn't heard his yells. He yanked me out of the pool with one arm around my waist, a shepherd's crook. He faced me, gripping my arms as we stood on the concrete under the shelter of the clubhouse awning. Didn't you hear me? What are you doing? He asked. Are you trying to kill yourself? Don't you know what that lightning would do to you? I began to sob, the booming above, booming in my chest still, the lightning crackling the air around us like sparks. I sobbed in great heaves, the water from the rain merging with my tears. The man loosened his grip and hugged me, kneeling, containing my thunder. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Deanne. Okay. So up next we have Don Zerilli. So Don Zerilli is the poetry educator for the New Jersey Teen Arts Festival. He edited the Rutherford Red Wheelbarrow and Now Culture. His poetry has been published in over 40 periodicals and anthologies, and he was nominated for a Pushcart, a Forward Prize, and Best of the Net. His chapbook, Heaven's Not For You, was published in 2018 by Kelsey Books. His website is surrealism.com, and Don had 2 poems published in Shadowplay Issue 2, Love is a Strange Country, and The Opening. Welcome, Don.
Thank you. And thank you to Mary for steering me to you folks. Very happy to be published with you. This is Love is a Strange Country. Love is a strange country. I wake up to a sideways window, but outside the world is small and straight. You are behind me, as close as the window, as far away as the world stretches outside it. A shape and weight I know, anatomy I've studied, but remaining as you are now, in a dark room, out of sight, like an angel faded from a triptych of the day of judgment. Still holy, still in power. In fact, only holiness and power are left. In your silence, I have no evidence you're even here, except I breathe. And like the air I'm only told of, you fill me at every moment in your invisible way. Strange, as I am strange and unknowable to myself, you share my eternal confoundedness, the wonder felt and given by the heron flying, and the wonder of clouds behind it, shadows of herons gone and to come. And thank you. And this is the opening. I sit under a painting of a river in Hackensack and pretend people see the landscape in my eyes. The gray staircase of foam, the empty boat deciding. I tell Judy that an iron gate in my head is creaking shut. The music of it's rather nice, I say. A rhythm of claw marks on an otherwise unremarkable piece. She calls me sensitive, which I am, like a cinder block. In a factory that's burning down, at night, mostly smoke. Take a step back, and I become something else. The painter does portraits, too. He's very good at skulls. His daughter's friend created the space for his work, the carving of colors onto months stretched by lockdown. There's a story here in this basement, but I escape it through computer-generated rain on a generic Parisian street in a large television over a fake fireplace. I turn gray, attracting a palette knife heaped with someone else's ideas. That painter is Rick Mullen, by the way. Some of you know him. So. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Don. Okay. So next up is Bart Edelman. So Bart Edelman's poetry collections include Crossing the Hackensack by Prometheus Press, Under Damaris's Dress by Lightning Publications, The Alphabet of Love, The Gentle Man, The Last Mojito, and The Geographer's Wife, which are all by Wren Hen Press, and Whistling to Trick the Wind, and This Body is Never at Rest, both by Meadowlark Press. Most recently, he has taught in the MFA program at Antioch University in Los Angeles. His work has been anthologized in textbooks published by City Lights Books, Longman, McGraw-Hill, Prentice Hall, the University of Iowa Press, Wadsworth, and others. He currently lives in Pasadena, California, and Bart's poem, It's a Pig, of course, appeared in Shadowplay Issue 1. Welcome, Bart.
Thank you, Chase. And thanks to the good folks at Shadowplay for publishing It's a Pig, of course. It's a pig, all right. It squeaks with delight at its own puffy sight and punctures the night with its pink brand of fright. It's a pig, all right. It's a pig, if you please, always waiting to seize its prey by the knees, so filled with disease, stone deaf to all pleas. It's a pig, if you please. It's a pig, sure enough, part oink and part bluff, inclined to be gruff when the truth turns tough and it's left in the rough. It's a pig, sure enough. It's a pig, of course, not a deer or a horse. There's no need to endorse a creature this coarse. Please consider the source. Yes, it's a pig, of course. I'm going to read two other short poems. This next poem is from This Body is Never at Rest, New and Selected Poems, 1993 to 2023, published by Meadowlark Press. I'm asking questions. What does heaven look like? What goes on in heaven? Perhaps this is a clue. In heaven. In heaven, they know your work. Catalog every poem you've written. Commit them to memory forevermore. Bradbury and you huddled together over a steaming cup of Java, discussing relevant issues each morning, giggling until the afternoon releases you to destiny's retreat. How sublime are the clouds buttoning up the universe below, telling you it's all been worth the journey to reach the celestial home. You'll never need leave again. Tomorrow, Twain shall come calling. He enjoys his billiards and bourbon, not necessarily in that order. Frost will soon follow next week, partial to easy wind and downy flake, arriving atop his splendid little horse. Bob's always good for a serious chat, no longer rushed by daily matters. Nary a promise to keep. It's a jolly good life here indeed. You can still write now and then when thoughts sneak up on you, like visits from long lost friends. And this is the title poem from This Body Is Never at Rest. This body is never at rest, for reasons I now suspect, for what it may portend, for where the next breath leads, for steps of jubilant agony. This body is never at rest, although it yearns for repair, although an avalanche awaits, although the Holy Spirit is asleep, although the universe cries foul. This body is never at rest, despite forgetting its last name, despite working round the clock, despite a simple state of decency, despite the hatchet in its back pocket. This body is never at rest, hence the clarion call to arms, hence a thought in a glass bottle, hence each muscle at mid-twitch, hence no date of expiration. This body is never at rest because the morning is an uncoiled string, because the afternoon pays no taxes, because the evening needs a shadow, because this body says so. Thank you all very much.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Bart.
You're welcome.
Okay, so our final reader tonight is going to be Eduardo Corvera. So Eduardo M. Corvera II is a writer from California, currently living in Texas. He enjoys spending time with his family, watching movies, listening to music, and writing between the hours of 11 p.m. and 4 o'clock in the morning. Eduardo's story, Their Daughter Fortuna, was published in Shadowplay's issue 2. And please welcome Eduardo.
How's it going? Hopefully everyone can hear me. Sound good? Cool. So yeah, I previously was incredibly unpublished. I've ruined that record. So this was my first submission, first acceptance, first publication. And I'd like it to be stated on the record that it's purely my wife's fault because she didn't like the idea of me writing for 14-ish years and not doing anything with the stuff that I was hiding in my desk. So here we are. I'm not going to be reading the short story because I felt like it was going to take up too much time. So instead, I wanted to read 2 poems from this collection that I've kind of been working on for a while. To preface it, in 2018, I got my first teaching job at Imperial Valley College, which is located in El Centro, California, out in the desert. It's like 2 hours away from San Diego. And through happenstance, the only English classes that they were willing to give me were at Calipatria State Penitentiary, which is a level 4 maximum security prison. And so that's where I taught, my first English classes. So these poems are about those gentlemen there. They are a series of cantos in the form of like semi-sonnets. So I'm going to read the first canto and then the 12th. So I watched the face of my son come into micro clarity in the eyes of a convict no younger than 40 years old, covered in tats and slinging the slang of a Chicano teeny bopper from 1994, dressed in blue shorts and a baby blue shirt stenciled with a royal gold CDCR, and on his feet, white sneakers I can't afford. From a distance across the yard, as they approach in a not so linear single file line, they are the sky, a light blue hue atop a dark blue horizon, their shoes like clouds rolling atop a dirt-laced concrete plain. They are blue men, not a people of the earth, but of the space just above us, displaced by their rippling actions, scattered, then captured by the winds of time. In all my life, I've never seen a group of men who looked more like trees. This is Canto 12. I carry a knobby ring of keys that opens up and frees a deadbolt from its tailored hole. And every step I take, the keys do often make the sound of liberty. I carry a heavy ring of keys that always makes me feel with every twist and turn, I myself do seal that feeling of said liberty. I carry, it seems, a ring of metal things that mean far more to them than they mean to me, and that's the very thing that haunts me every night, that keeps me from sleeping. An ever longer list of things I take for granted, the sound of expectations landing on their heads as I try to rest in bed, checking off the boxes that prove I too have wasted chances and pissed away my liberty. At least that much is clear to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Eduardo, and congratulations on your first publication. That's excellent.
Hey. Thanks.
So that was our last reader for tonight. Again, I appreciate you all for coming out, for sending your submissions, and for helping make this magazine, what it is. I mean, it's completely you guys that just established this as a great literary journal, and we appreciate you so much. Thank you for showing up, for reading, and for keeping art alive. We appreciate you, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you
Chase.
for the acceptance.